Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Hello, and welcome to this Monday edition of Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and I start with maybe what you might consider a controversial statement, or I think it's a hard to dispute statement, though. Maybe you would like to dispute it. Everyone believes in chastity. I think there might be extreme cases where people don't, but even pornographers and rock stars believe in some degree of chastity. Where we often differ is on how much chastity is good for us, how much self-control and restraint in sexual matters is healthy. At what point are we acting out sexually in ways that are simply beneath human dignity? We disagree with that. That's the controversial question of our age. And that is our topic this hour. If you have questions about the virtue of chastity or would like to participate in our conversation this hour about chastity, 888-318-7884 is our number. 888-318-7884. Our guest this hour is Jason Evert. He is the best-selling author of more than 10 books, including The Theology of the Body for Teens and How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul. He has a master's degree in theology as well as undergraduate degrees in counseling and theology from Franciscan University of Steubenville. He's a regular guest here and once worked here at Catholic Answers. Thank you for being with us today, Jason.
Thanks for having me on again. It's good to be back.
And my controversial statement that everyone believes in chastity, are you on board with me, or no?
I think that makes sense. I think it's almost like what Fulton Sheen said about Catholicism, that, there aren't 100 people who hate the Catholic Church, but there's millions who hate what they mistakenly think the Church teaches. Yeah. I think it's the same with chastity. There's probably millions of people who resent it as some neurotic attitude towards sexuality, but they're really resenting a misunderstanding of it.
Yeah, that puts me in mind of, I was watching a documentary about New York City in the 50s. And one of the people that was talking about Greenwich Village said everyone was in analysis. Everyone was in Freudian analysis. And it made me think, wow, that Freudian view of human sexuality is really culturally powerful. It transformed the culture and made people start thinking, oh, well, any repression of any restraint equals repression, and repression means it's going to come out somewhere else. You're going to be neurotic in some other area of life.
Yeah, which to an extent is true, but the Church is not asking us to repress anything. Yeah. A lot of people have this mentality that either, I repress my desires to make God happy, or I indulge in all of my passions to make myself happy. I mean, somebody's going to be unhappy here. But what this fails to see is that repression does not please or glorify God, and indulging in lust isn't going to bring us joy either. There is another option between indulgence and repression, which is the integration of our sexual desires, which is what chastity is all about.
888-31-TRUTH is our number. Jason Evert is our guest, and we're discussing chastity today. So you mentioned lust. Is lust always a sin?
Well, yes. And okay. Now, a lot of people confuse lust with sexual desire, though. They think that lust is passion. Lust is sexual arousal. And therefore, if I'm being aroused or sexually attracted or passionate, I must be lusting, and so I must be failing at chastity. I think a lot of people give up on practicing chastity because they think that sexual desire is lust. And so as long as they have sexual desires, they're repeatedly failing. But what this fails to understand is that in order for there to be a sin, there has to be consent. And so sexual attractions are bound to come, and in and of themselves, they're not a sin. They're something we experience. But what we do with those attractions can lead either to virtue or to vice. And so the whole goal of chastity is not to eliminate sexual desires and attractions. This idea that if I become really pure, then I'm not going to have any desires anymore. Well, if you don't have desires, it doesn't mean you're pure. It means you're probably dead. This is not the end goal of chastity.
Yeah, and you're not recently dead either. You got to be dead a while before.
Yeah, at least a good 7 hours or so.
Yeah, right. That's what they say anyways. Yeah, so it's interesting, though, that we can have a very positive view of sexual desire. As a matter of fact, I think we're required to have a positive view of sexual desire while saying that that avoiding lust is essential to your full flourishing as a human being.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember growing up thinking, well, if I really get into the church, as a teenager, God is going to rob me of my individuality, of my personality. I'm going to get put into this little mold, and I don't want to be that, because I saw people at our church that were unusual, and I thought, well, holy people are weird. And a friend of mine said, look, you're going to meet holy people that were weird, but they were weird before they were holy. So that's at least some consolation. But you look at the worst sinners of the world, whether it's Al Qaeda or people in some drug cartel, they're the least unique people on the planet. They're almost clones. But you look at the lives of the saints, and they're radiantly unique, because what sainthood is the full bloom of the human personality. And so God isn't trying to put us into a mold. He's trying to help us become who He's created us to be.
So why is chastity so important? Well, first of all, maybe we should say exactly what we mean by the word chastity, and why is it an important part of being a fully mature person, especially a spiritually fully mature person? What is the deal with chastity?
Well, chastity does not mean celibacy. Celibacy means the state of not being married. It does not mean abstinence either. Abstinence is simply the absence of sex. What chastity is the presence of something, namely the presence of the virtue of purity, which is something that applies to my imagination, my eyes, my speech, my wardrobe, my behavior. So it encompasses the whole human person. And it frees us to love, because we're not under the total dominion of our lusts. And it frees us to know if we're being loved, because it'll bring another person's intentions right up to the surface. Because if they're desiring you simply for your body or for the pleasure that you can give to them, well, it's not really you that they want. It's the pleasure that they can get at your expense. And so if you win them with your body, or you win them with pleasure, you keep them with pleasure. But pleasure is a repeatable thing. They can get it from another person or from the internet. If you win them with, well, everybody has a body. I mean, I can't remember the last woman I met who did not have a body. Okay, like, these are repeatable assets. But if you win him with who you are as a human person, then you are unrepeatable. And as a result, his relationships typically last longer, because they stand on a firmer foundation. And so this virtue of chastity is something that we're called to, whether you're a priest, a married person, a single person. It's something we're all called to practice.
We're talking chastity today with our guest, Jason Evert. Our number, 888-318-7884. If you would like some help in that area, you're welcome to give a call. If you'd like to challenge maybe the Catholic understanding of chastity, or would just like a deeper understanding of what we mean by living a chaste life, 888-318-7884. Your call is welcome, whatever angle you'd like to come at it from, 888-318-7884. 7884. I think she was joking before the show, but one of the women here at Catholic Answers said your target audience for a show on chastity should be men 18 to 40. Is that a fair thing to say, or I mean, it has a certain ring of truth in a way that's maybe the primary challenge for men of a certain age?
It does. I mean, yeah, we struggle with it in a particular way, but when you start saying, okay, if you struggle with pornography, guys, here's how to break free from it. Well, what about all the women struggling with this that think, oh, wait a minute, that must be a male sin? Am I like some freak of nature because I'm struggling with lust or pornography or this or that? Wow, this is a guy problem. Man, I don't want to tell my priest. I don't want to go to confession. And it leads them into these cycles of shame and isolation when lust is not a guy problem. Like, this is a human problem. And so we've got to be able to break through these rigid gender stereotypes of, okay, well, guys struggle with porn and girls struggle with modesty and emotional issues. So you girls go to your cabin at the retreat and talk about emotional things, and boys will talk about how to battle lust. Well, this is kind of an old school form of youth ministry that's a bit outdated now, because these problems are going in both directions. Guys have emotions too. We struggle with relationship issues. Girls struggle with online pornography, thinking, well, sometimes they get into it because of curiosity. Well, who do I need to be? How do I need to act? What do I need to do? What do I need to look like? But women were not created to be porn, but they were created to be loved. And so I think it's so important that we not simply go after chastity as if some 21-year-old male issue. This is a very human issue, whether you're 68 years old, or 14. It's something we're all wrestling with in one way or another.
Yeah, and the internet helps. The internet's made everything better.
Yeah. without question.
All right, we got to take a quick break, Jason. Thanks so much. If you would like to talk with Jason, there still remains a line open, but lines are filling up quickly. We're talking chastity this hour on Catholic Answers Live, 888-318-7884. We'll be right back with that after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Call now. Catholic Answers Live.
Hello, my friends. Summer is here. That means summer reading. I have great news. Catholic Answers is having its first ever summer book sale in the online shop at Catholic.com. For a limited time, you can get dozens of great books offered at $10, $5, even as low as $1 a copy. Now is the time to load up on solid Catholic books for yourself, your friends, and your family. Save 50% or more on books by Jimmy Akin, Tim Staples, Rod Bennett, Gary Machuda, and a whole host of great authors. And my personal favorite, all the books in our Catholic Answers Classic series are marked down as well. Log on now and all this month to the store at shop.catholic.com and take advantage of our first ever summer sale. Log on today at shop.catholic.com.
Hi, this is Trent Horn, and I'm really excited to tell you about a special limited-time offer we've got right now on subscriptions of our award-winning Catholic Answers magazine. Sign up today during our annual subscription drive, and not only can you save big bucks off the normal price, we'll give you a digital subscription of the magazine for free. Subscribe today by calling 818-487-2011 or by logging online to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. Sign up for a 1-year subscription, and we'll give you $10 off the normal price. But better yet, become a 2-year subscriber, and we'll up the ante by dropping the price by $20. That's a savings of $10 to $20 plus a free digital subscription when you sign up for Catholic Answers Magazine. Act now because this is our best offer of the year, and it's only available for a limited time. Subscribe to Catholic Answers Magazine before our annual subscription drive ends. Phone 818-487-2011 or go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com.
Do you love sharing the gospel and want to learn to be more effective? Join the St. Paul Street Evangelization online School of Evangelization. You will learn to build bridges of trust and make disciples by befriending strangers, proclaiming the gospel, inviting people to the church, and praying with others. We'll ask for a pledge of financial support, but if you are unable to give, we'll give you a membership at no cost. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, talking chastity this hour. Next hour, we're going to talk about the science of life and death with scientist and theologian Dr. Stacy Trasenkos. The beginnings, the ends of life, is it fuzzy? Is it unclear? Or what does science tell us about life and death? We'll cover that then. This hour, if you would like to talk about chastity, 888-31-TRUTH is the number. But before we go to that, let me remind you that all throughout June, Catholic Answers is offering dozens of books and DVDs for more than 50% off. We've got them priced at $10, $5, and $1. Offerings by Jimmy Akin, Tim Staples, Gary Machuda, Matt Fradd, many others. If you love Catholic books and DVDs, it's a great time to stock up for summer reading and viewing. Go to shop.catholic.com and look for the $1, $5, $10 book and DVD sale and click that banner. And remember that everything you buy in the sale, during the sale, is shipped to you at a flat rate of $5. Doesn't matter if you buy 1 or 100, flat rate of $5 on all shipping. Go to shop.catholic.com. Now's your chance. We are with Jason Everett. And Jason, we have lines and lines full to talk with you. You ready to take calls?
Let's go.
All right. Joseph in Huntington Beach, California. You are on with Jason Everett. Your question, please. Joseph? All right. I'm going to come back to Joseph. Maybe he just took a momentary pause. Let's go to Jose, which I believe is Joseph in Spanish. Am I correct about that, Nick? Is Jose Joseph in Spanish? Oh, sí. Muchas gracias.
Is the short form of Joseph.
All right. Jose, you are on with Jason Everett. Your question, please.
Okay, question. How does one explain the dangers of pornography and masturbation to a world that freely accepts it and even applauds it, right?
Right.
One thing I would do is check out there's a relatively new ministry and website called Fight the New Drug. So if you just Google Fight the New Drug, you'll find their site. And it is explaining the harm of pornography, not from a religious perspective, but from a perspective of relationships and neurobiology, of what porn is doing to your brain. And they're leading this campaign to basically turn pornography into cigarettes, in the sense that, yeah, back in the 50s and 60s, oh, smoking was cool. It was the fashionable thing to do. It's harmless. And then as more science came out, it's like, wow, it's doing what to my lungs? It's doing what to my lifespan, to my teeth, to my body? Oh, I don't think I want that. And now as more neurology is coming to the surface, and psychology and sociology, showing the harm of pornography to our relationships, to our brains, to the capacity to build authentic love, the evidence is becoming more and more insurmountable, not from a religious perspective, but that this is harmful stuff. And so I would check out their website, because a lot of the people who are sold on pornography don't want to hear a religious argument against it. And this website and ministry will help arm you with a lot of people, even from Hollywood. I mean, one guy, Russell Brand, you might not know the name, but I'm sure you'd recognize him if you saw him. He was a pretty raunchy British comedian and actor who was married to Katy Perry for a short span of time. Now, a very raunchy actor and comedian. And he came out with like a 10-minute video explaining how pornography has essentially annihilated his capacity to love a woman. And he even quotes in this video, without realizing it, Pope John Paul II. He said, yeah, I heard some priest said this or that. And so you have people even coming from the secular world saying, hey, I thought this was harmless, but it turns out not only was I being harmed, but the person in the porn industry, many of which are in the sex trade industry, are being harmed. And the reason why porn is bad isn't because it's addictive or it's illegal if it's below this age or whatever. It's wrong because it's using another person, and no human being was ever created to be used. And when you get hooked on the porn, you get what I would call porn goggles, that you don't even know how to look at another person except through this lens of lust. I remember speaking at an all-girls Catholic high school in the Midwest. The religion teacher brought into the classroom a group of college boys who had graduated the year earlier from a nearby all-boys Catholic school. And she wanted those boys to share with her young women on how they could practice their faith and stay strong in Catholicism once they got off to college. During the course of this little classroom discussion, it came up that one of those young men looks at pornography. And the teacher said, now this is in front of about 30 girls, to this young man, well, don't you think that could present a problem within your marriage? And the young college boy was perplexed. He said, well, pornography and marriage, why would that be a problem? He said, isn't that what a wife is for? It's like,
oh, wow.
Well, no, yeah, that's actually not what a wife is for, because marriage is not the fulfillment of porn. Porn is the distortion of human love. And when we enter into marriage looking at women as some outlet to be used for our gratification, it annihilates intimacy. And so I would encourage you to research this so you can explain it from a neurological perspective of how it's actually sculpting the structure of your brain to expect all women to live up to this fantasy of a disposable supermodel, how it's training us to associate sexual joy with these dirty, illicit, forbidden sexual fantasies and novelty. And when then you try to transition to loving a human being who's not some dirty, illicit, forbidden sexual fantasy who's different every 5 minutes, your brain has a very difficult time adjusting because you had trained it to associate sexual joy with this when reality is totally different. This is why in Japan now, I read one study that said 40% of young Japanese men are not even interested in having a sexual relationship with an actual woman, because they're too satisfied with what they're getting with virtual reality porn. Well, who would want to bother with the risk of rejection and the demands of a woman's emotions and commitment? Hey, I can just live in my fantasies with my pixels. Who needs an actual person? And so I think the best argument against porn is the lives of those who become addicted to it and how it robs them of their capacity for authentic human love. But again, check out that website, Fight the New Drug, and then we've also got some good stuff at chastityproject.com.
Jose, great question. How do you make sense of that answer? Does that work for you?
I think it works great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jose. What strikes me is a couple things. Jason, in your answer, you don't make a reference to religion. You don't make a religious justification, and you also don't make reference. And I'm not faulting you for this. You're not making reference to the harms that pornography does to the performers or the producers of pornography. You speak directly to the user of pornography, saying it's hurting you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it is important, as you had mentioned, to address those other harms. Like, okay, this woman who's behind the camera, really, who is she? I mean, she's the center of attention, or he is the center of the attention, but they're completely ignored. What you've got is the divorce of the body from the soul. I want the body. Who cares about the soul? I read of one woman who left the pornography industry. I think she said after her 4th abortion, the toll it was taking on her physiologically and emotionally. I read of one woman, she said after the film was shot for the porn video, she had to go to the hospital because her body was so damaged from acts. They had to go to the hospital, but the porn producer wouldn't even drive her. He just called an Uber to pick her up to take her to the emergency room. If you realize who's really behind that camera, it's not these just happy, well-adjusted people who are making a great living off pornography. I mean, you've got individuals who are living in a state of drunkenness and depression. That's why the suicide rates of those in the porn industry is astronomical. If we could just learn to see them as human beings, then we could live in this culture, I think, where porn isn't, rejected because, it's shameful. It's rejected because, well, how could I treat a human being like that? No, we're better than this as a civilization, I think.
Jose, very grateful for the call. Thank you so much. Tom, listening on 11:48 a.m. in Boise, Idaho. You are up next. If I can get you there, Tom. Tom, are you on with us?
Yes, sir, I am.
Tom, your question.
My question is, why did the most holy people who ever lived practice total and complete sexual abstinence? Of course, the primary example is our Lord Jesus, his mother Mary, his earthly father Joseph. And then if you go through the list of saints, and I'm sure I, of course, don't know all of them, but St. Teresa of Avila, Mother Teresa of Calcutta, it seems like everyone, and that's not true, but the majority are totally, completely sexually abstinent. I'm just curious your answer to that question.
Okay, yeah, very good question, an insightful one as well. I think first we need to think about the canonization process. What is the process by which a person becomes canonized? Many people who become canonized belong to religious orders because when a member of their own order dies in a state of great sanctity, the order wants to promote this person. Oh, look what God did through this wonderful person. You have an entire religious organization, whether it's the Dominicans behind Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati or something like that, kind of pushing forward this cause for the canonization, whereas when you have a typical husband and wife, there doesn't tend to be as much interest, and thrust behind the canonization of those individuals, despite the heights of sanctity to which they may have attained. Now, what we're seeing recently, as of about 3 years ago, the parents of Saint Therese of Lisieux were canonized. And so here we have a married couple who I think was really brought to the forefront because of the holiness of their child, St. Therese the Little Flower. But I'd recommend, if you haven't spent much time, reading the lives of Louis Martin and Zélie Guérin, who are the parents of St. Therese of Lisieux, because I think the church is going to try to start canonizing more married couples. There was another one. This guy's name was Saint Mark Ji Tiang Zheng. He was a husband and a father, and he lived in China in late 1800s, and he became addicted to opium, the drug. He was a doctor and came down with a stomach ailment, and to treat himself, he took some opium, which was a common treatment at that time, and he got addicted. He went to confession. Priest gave him absolution and some advice for overcoming it, and he fell back into it. And this happens so often, the priest told him, well, don't come back to confession and don't receive the Eucharist anymore because you're obviously not sorry enough for your sins to stop them. Now, this is bad pastoral advice for someone who didn't understand the mental health issues behind addiction. And so this guy, Mark, stayed away from confession for 1 year and 2 years, continued going to church and staying faithful to his wife and their children and praying, but stayed addicted to this and kept fighting to overcome it, but falling on his faith for 10 years, 15, 20, 30 years, addicted to opium. He started praying that God would free him from, this addiction, but he never fully broke free. He started praying that God would make him a martyr because he could see no other way that he could enter heaven. And God answered his prayer in the year 1900. The Boxer Rebellion came into China, and they started persecuting Catholics, and he and his family all rounded up to be executed. And as they're being dragged off to death, his grandson said to him, Mark, where are we going? And Mark said to him, we're going home. And they brought them to the place of execution. Mark begged all of the executioners to kill him last because he didn't want anyone in the family to die without him there present supporting them. One by one, 9 members of his family were beheaded, and then he last was beheaded while he was singing the litany of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and now he's a canonized saint in the Catholic Church. And thanks be to God. This is a bit of a messy saint story. It's not what you see in the stained glass windows, but it's proof that the saint isn't the one who doesn't have a mess. Okay, the saint is the one who gives his mess utterly to Jesus Christ. And thankfully, I think in the wisdom of the church, the next few decades and centuries, we're going to see more and more examples of these wonderful witnesses of sanctity, even within the married state.
Tom, great question. Thanks so much for that. More on chastity and living chastity, the virtue of chastity, how to acquire the virtue of chastity, why it's important, and any other question you might have for Jason Evert right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Check out EWTN's official YouTube channel.
Just follow the link on our homepage at EWTN.com or go to YouTube.com/EWTN.
Watch EWTN's live shows or today's homily from the Daily Mass.
Click the upload button to see our most recent clips.
You can also find all of EWTN YouTube content by clicking the playlist button.
It's all on the official EWTN YouTube channel at YouTube.com/EWTN.
Visit today.
What difference does it make who or what you worship or what you believe? Sharing the faith used to make some people mad because it challenged their own strong beliefs. Today, it makes a lot of people yawn because they don't have strong beliefs about anything. Religious indifference is the great spiritual sickness of our age, a product of the relativism that dominates modern culture. This is Matt Nelson, and in my new book, Just Whatever, I'll take down the building blocks of religious indifference one by one. We'll look at the different kinds of indifference you tend to encounter in your friends and family members to see where they come from and why they're seductive. What you believe matters. Find out why and what to do about it in my new book, Just Whatever. You can order your copy of Just Whatever by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Catholic Answers is a media ministry that serves Christ by explaining and defending the Catholic faith. We help Catholics grow in their faith, we bring former Catholics home, and we lead non-Catholics into the fullness of the truth. Our goal is to be the most trusted and accessible source for sharing, explaining, and defending the Catholic faith through as many media as possible, from personal contact to the most innovative means of mass communication. Have questions? We've got answers. Catholic Answers. Visit us today at Catholic.com or call us with your questions at 619-387-7200.
Welcome back to our Great Big Monday show here on Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Hour 2, don't miss. Scientist and theologian Dr. Stacy Trasancos will be here to talk about the science of life and death. She can give you both the theology and the science of those relatively pressing questions. So we'd love to have you here for that hour. This hour, we're talking about chastity with Jason Evert, formerly of Catholic Answers, now of pretty much anywhere they need somebody to talk about chastity. He travels all over to do that. You can give me a website, Jason. Where can people find you?
ChastityProject.com.
ChastityProject.com. And you publish as well. Your imprint is called Totus Tuus
Press.
Mm-hmm. And you got a brand new book from Christopher West coming out. And when will it be out, and the title?
Yeah, that should be out in about 3 weeks, and it's called Eclipse of the Body. And it discusses the fact that the meaning of male and female, femininity, masculinity, family, father, mother, everything's kind of getting shifted and redefined right now, and none of the new definitions are even definite in themselves. And it's almost as the meaning of the human body has been obscured and eclipsed. And he's going to explain kind of where this came from and how we can, again, reveal God's plan for humanity in our bodies.
That's one of our listeners. I've been watching just a little bit of the comments on Facebook as we go through the show. Was suggesting that ultimately we're moving towards a kind of desire to be post-human, to just give up on our humanity together, and feels that all this pornography and all this virtual stuff and the abandonment of male and female, it's all part of a movement that will culminate in saying we're just tired of being human. We want to move on and be computers or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's all variants of the same issue of separating the body from the person. I mean, that's really what pornography is. That's what gender theory is.
Yeah.
It's the devil using the same tactic, but in different ways, And so a lot of people want to, my goodness, I want to be compassionate and respectful towards individuals struggling with this area, but how do I explain why the church teaches what she teaches, and ultimately why the church's teachings on homosexuality, contraception, gender theory is good news? I think we need to get back to that proposition of the faith as good news instead of perpetually being in a kind of defensive.
888-318-7884, the number. We go now to Anonymous in Riverside, California. Anonymous, you are on with Jason Everett. Your question, please.
Hi. My question has to do with homosexuality and chastity. Say there's a couple who converted and want to be faithful to the Catholic Church, but are in love with each other and don't want to lose each other. Could they kind of go into something similar like the Virgin Mary, St. Joseph, where they were married, but they were celibate, to be faithful to the church?
Okay, very good question. And again, thank you for calling in. Two things to address here. One is the question of living together. So I guess three questions. One is living together. Two is the status of a marriage. And three is their desire for union. We'll start there with their desire for union. The desire when you fall in love with someone and you want to love them is to be united. And St. John Chrysostom, I remember, once said that a young husband should say to his wife that, his greatest, what would cause him more suffering than anything is to be separated, to be different than her in mind or in spirit. And he said, so I want to live my life with you in such a way that we may be assured of not being separated in the life reserved for us. And what he's saying is that I just don't want temporary physical or emotional union with you. I want eternal union with you. I want to be with you before the beatific vision of God for all eternity. I never want to be separated from you. And so that's almost the divine imprint of love on a relationship. That, yeah, I might want to be with you tonight. I mean, think of some high school boy wants to sleep with his girlfriend, but he says, you know what, I might want to do this, but you know what? I know it's not best for her. And so I'm going to make this sacrifice of abstinence because that is going to be a greater expression of love than making love. And so individuals who experience same-sex attractions, I think, can realize that abstinence in their friendship is an expression of love. It's not the denial and the negation of love. They're bringing their love now to a sacrificial level where they're actually saying in their bodies the words of the Mass. Like, this is my body given up for you. These desires, these passions, these temptations I have, I'm giving them up for you. And so they become a very visible image, I think, of Christ's love on earth. Individuals who experience same-sex attractions choosing to practice an abstinent lifestyle. Now, living together, the advice the church would give would be the same they would give for two people who are not married, that why would a man live with the woman who he's sexually attracted to who he's not married? Not only would that be a great occasion of sin and temptation, but it would also be a scandal to those on the outside looking in who would simply assume they're being sexually intimate. The third issue is that of marriage. Two men simply cannot become married. And this is not a question of permission, like can the church give them permission to marry? It's the question of possibility. Like, is it possible for me to marry a woman when I'm already married? No. Is it possible for me to marry two women? No. It's not a matter of the church just caving in and letting me marry 2 women, that relationship would not be what a marriage is. And so when it comes down to the church's teaching on marriage, it isn't about hatred or bigotry. It's simply about the fact that God has created marriage to be one thing, and the church simply does not have the authority to redefine it. But instead of getting hung up on the marriage question or the cohabitation question, I think we need to focus on the goodwill that's present in their hearts to desire that authentic union through that sacrifice of practicing chastity, that they can still retain their friendship. And I'd recommend them getting plugged into a local chapter of Courage, where they can meet other people who experience same-sex attractions and are practicing chastity. There's even a new website that just came out on this. It's called EdenInvitation.com. So Eden, like the Garden of Eden, then the word invitation.com. And I'd encourage you to check it out because it's just a great brand new resource for those who experience same-sex attractions and are choosing to glorify God in and through their bodies.
Okay, Anonymous?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate it. I wonder, Jason, I think we have discussed this before, but it does strike me that the hypersexualization of our society has hurt male friendships terribly and female friendships terribly. Like that for it seems to me in the past and in societies that are not kind of afflicted with this hypersexuality that we have, that men could love their friend passionately. There was a passionate, wonderful love there. But now people, that's harmed because there's just this sniggering that goes along with it. Like that, well, obviously, but not obviously. That's not the case.
And I think it's especially confusing for the young people. I mean, one girl came to me and she said, Jason, I'm kind of confused because my friends think I'm a lesbian and I think I'm straight, so maybe I'm bisexual. And I said, well, what's going on? And she said, well, the guys in my school are really perverted and violating, and I'm really disgusted by them. But there is a girl on campus. I come alive in her presence. We can talk for hours, and she's beautiful and funny and smart. And my friends are telling me that's a girl crush. And so I should experiment with her to see if that's really who I am, and I don't know what to think. And I said to her, I don't know if anyone's not told this to you before. You're supposed to be repulsed by everything repulsive. You're supposed to be attracted to everything attractive. So your friend, her wit, her charm, her personality, doesn't that all draw you to her? She said it does. I said, look, I go to a Bible study and there's an 85-year-old man there with this gigantic beard, and I'm completely attracted to this man. Like if there's an empty seat next to him, that's where I'm sitting. I just want to be in his presence, his warmth, his joy, his charisma. Because guess not every sexual attraction, not every human attraction is a sexual attraction. Right. And the girl's eyes lit up, and she said, I'd never thought about it like that before. That makes so much sense.
But it's how sad that she never thought about it like that before, because there was a time when that was how you thought about that. You fall in love with your friends. That's part of what friendship is, and it's exciting and as I said, passionate. But that doesn't mean I do think they're confused. Well, that must mean that I am oriented in a certain way.
Yeah, and they're being indoctrinated with this from kindergarten now. They've got the gender unicorn they're using in the classrooms, showing kids, well, this is your, gender identity, then this is your gender expression, and then that's your sex, and then this is your sexual attractions, these are your emotional attractions. Yeah. And just starting with this anthropology from, before even grade school, telling these kids, well, this is who you are. If you experience this, that is your identity. So your attractions then become your identity. But if we buy off on that, if anyone on earth identifies themselves by their sexual attractions, I think life is going to get real confusing real fast. Because if I'm attracted to a woman who's not my wife, is that my identity? No, it's not. An attraction is something you experience. Right. Your identity is a son or daughter of God.
Right. Well, it's very helpful, and it is a tragic loss. The loss of friendship is a terrible, terrible loss in our culture. Let's go to Ron in Illinois, listening on Covenant Radio. Ron, we only have a couple minutes before the break, so is that going to be time to talk about what you wanted to talk about, or do you want me to take the break and we'll come back to you?
Well, I just wanted to talk I used to have, I guess I'm a recovered addict of pornography. And I'm a married man in my middle 40s, and a lifelong, use of pornography. And I've been married for nearly 20 years, much of which was, you know, clouded by the scourge of my life. And, you know, I can only say me being able to step away from pornography when it's everywhere around us. You know, the only thing that helped me was I realized how much I was giving up in my relationship with my wife. And, you know, I decided I wasn't praying, but I decided to embrace love. And you know, pornography is horrible. I cannot get it out of, I now have gotten it out of my head. It comes at the worst times, you know, and when it first, you know, it just embeds itself into your brain, and it's something that it's hard to get away from. But I can tell you what, it is the one of the main reasons I know that the grace of God is alive and well in my life. It's as soon as I realized, hey, I've been 4 years without pornography. Once I started going to confession and talking to my priest about it, I mean, this was well after the fact, but, you know, I just want people to realize, and I believe that chastity in marriage and pornography, all this goes hand in hand. It started when I was in my early teens, and it has affected my life, you know. And I just you know, want people to know that there is hope, and it doesn't take iron will, but it takes, I believe, embracing the love in your life, and because sex is part of love, but it is not the emotion. I mean, there's so much more to it. You know, and I hope I'm not rambling on.
No, you're not, Ron. It's beautiful testimony, and it's very powerful testimony, because I think people don't really believe that the sacraments have the power to do that. I think that was my own experience as a younger person. Does the sacraments have the power to heal it? Whatever it is, they have the power to bring you back from it. I'm very grateful for that, Ron. Jason, you probably want to make a response to Ron. Can I just get the break out of the way, and we'll do that when we come back?
Sounds good.
Okay, Ron, hang on if you can. We'll be right back with more discussing chastity today on Catholic Answers Live with Jason Evert after this.
Hang on. Catholic Answers Live will return in a moment.
Join us this September for a conference that is sure to ignite and inform your faith.
Every time we come here, it's just an incredible experience.
I love it. I'm so glad I came here.
And I'm having the time of my life.
Early bird pricing ends July 2nd. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 1-888-291-8000 today to register.
These guys are so amazing. I always get so much, learn so much. I've already signed up for next year.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
God helps those who help themselves. Preach the gospel always. When necessary, use words. We all hear sayings like these, and we assume they come from the Bible, the saints, or famous Christian writers. Nobody can seem to place their origin, but by sheer repetition, they've acquired a halo of truth. In my new book, What the Saints Never Said, I look at over 40 of these well-known sayings and track them back to their original sources. You'll be surprised at what I found. Some are close to what was really said. Many were misattributed or twisted beyond their original meaning, and more than a few of these sayings were simply made up. I hope by setting the record straight, I can make you aware of the theological errors that can lead us away from the faith and offer you authentic quotes from Scripture, saints, and scholars that will draw you closer to our faith. Get your copy of What the Saints Never Said by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or by asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Thanks so much for being with us. We're talking chastity today with Jason Evert, who you can find out all about at the Chastity Project. Or is it Chastity Project?
ChastityProject.com.
Just Chastity Project. ChastityProject.com. You can find out all about Jason and what he does. And we were talking with Ron when we went to the break and Ron was sharing with us about his overcoming of the distortions of pornography in his life. And not a rare story, but a beautiful one every time you hear it. And Ron was talking about the sacrament of confession and how it was part of, and talking with his priest was part of becoming free from pornography. Before we go, you wanted to address Ron, but there's also an anonymous caller who called and didn't want to stay on the line, but asked that we answer this on the air. And she said, what is your advice for undoing the distortion of pornography when you were exposed early on? And she was exposed very early in her life as a young child to pornography. But now you're married and trying to live in a healthy relationship. What are some first steps to take? So I thought I would share that with you. It seems that that's connected to what Ron had to say. Jason.
Yeah, well, first I want to thank you, Ron, for calling in and for your testimony. You've just given people hope. You know, a lot of people, I think, that struggle with addictions to pornography and attachments to it wonder, am I ever going to break free? Is this like who I am? I'm the porn addict. I'm never going to win. But, you know, like you said, love is what gives you that motivation to be able to break free. Not just the guilt and the shame and the regret, but just the desire to love and to love rightly. And so I just want to thank you for your testimony. And then to Anonymous, who had left that message, yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat in a sense with you, where I first saw pornography when I was probably in second grade, riding around the neighborhood, you know, on our bicycles, you know, finding some dirty magazine in the gutter, and well, what's this? And, you know, and that got me hooked on that stuff early through grade school and had it up all the way through high school. And I'm kind of thankful that I got out of pornography just as the internet was coming in. I remember a friend of mine saying, hey, look, you can see some of this online. And, you know, he takes his AOL floppy disk and puts it in for a couple free hours. And, you know, the image was so grainy and took so long to download. By the time the picture showed up, I had pretty much finished puberty and lost interest altogether. You know, and it's a different story now. I mean, on the phones, on the internet, what's available and so accessible leaves such scar tissue. And especially when we're young kids being exposed to this stuff, how do we scrub it out? How do we heal those wounds? One, I think it's important that we not simply approach it from a solely human or spiritual perspective. We need to look at both of these things. The human perspective, sometimes it's really helpful and even necessary to go to counseling, to get those parts of our memory healed a bit, to get some help in that area. Because when we go through this type of sexual abuse, and I think it is when a young child is exposed to this, it's almost like being in a car accident and walking away from the scene of the accident. You know, because I can live with a broken rib, I can live with a broken leg. I'm going to have a pretty nasty limp, but I can have enough coping mechanisms to get through life. God doesn't want us to have to live with those crutches. And I know it's scary to want to go back to the hospital and reset that bone, and so we kind of stay away sometimes. But there are great Catholic counselors out there. 2 websites I'd recommend are integrityrestored.com, where you can become familiar with the work of Dr. Peter Kloponis, Father Sean Kilcawley. They've got great stuff on how to heal the effects of pornography. And also a place like catholictherapists.com, where you can find some good therapists with a Catholic background to help this. So first you've got the human and psychological element. Then also the second is the spiritual part. When those flashbacks come back, or those memories, sometimes we don't know what to do with them. We just want to stuff them. But I've found one thing to be very helpful, and that's responding with to those flashbacks with love. Now, how do we do that? Well, the Catechism tells us there's 4 types of prayer. The first type of prayer we could do is thanksgiving. And so if you're tempted to lust after someone, instead of seeing them as an occasion of sin, stop and be grateful for the beauty that God has given to them. You could pray Psalm 84, how lovely is your dwelling place, Lord mighty God, to fight temptation with gratitude. Second form of prayer is that of contrition, where when lustful thoughts come to mind or tempting people come into sight, we can pause to ask God for the times we've failed to look rightly at the other person. A third form of prayer is intercession or supplication, that when maybe some flashback of some person that we saw in that industry comes to mind, hey, I can stop and I can love that person right now by offering a Hail Mary for them or praying or fasting for them. And then the fourth form of prayer is adoration. To be able to take the beauty of the human form in our imagination, although it's been distorted, and realize all of that beauty came from God. And we just ask him to help untwist our understanding of the way that it's been warped in our minds, and to give adoration and praise to God. And so this is almost like a form of spiritual Tai Chi. That's a form of martial art where you take the aggression of your opponent and all his energy against you, and you turn it against him. So where the devil may be using scar tissue and flashbacks or hurts from your past to damage you, your faith, your marriage, you're able to take that offense from the devil and turn it around and to turn it into something beautiful. So with those two wings, so to speak, the spiritual part and the human and psychological part together, this can help us to heal some of those hurts from the past so that God can fulfill his promise that he said in the Old Testament that he will restore the years that the locust, that the plague has eaten. So God bless you, and be assured of the prayers of myself and the listeners as you continue to heal.
Thank you, Ron, and thank you for that anonymous caller who asked that we read her question. Let's go to Dean now in Houston, listening on 1430 AM. Dean, you're on with Jason Everett. Your question, please.
Hey, guys. Good afternoon. Yeah, there's a lot of us out there that are single. I'm middle-aged. I'm 50 plus, and I'm not single by choice necessarily. I would love to be in a relationship, but trying to practice my faith. And I know those 4 or 5 things you just mentioned, certainly prayer and such are ways to approach this, but what practical advice can you give to people like me that are kind of beyond that point of finding, their prince or princess in my case, and still trying to live the Catholic faith?
Thank you for the call, Dean. One thing I would say is that you're not necessarily beyond your age or finding that prince or princess. I think there's probably a lot of women listening to this show right now who might be like, Dean, don't stop. Don't give up. We're out here. Maybe we were in a marriage before that had been annulled, and, it wasn't what we had ever hoped for or planned for in marriage, and now we're trusting and hoping in God's plan for our life, or we've just never found the right guy and we're still out there looking. Like, there is still a possibility. Many people find their vocation to the priesthood when they're in their 40s or 50s. Many find their first marriage to be happening at that time. So not necessarily to close the door and say it's too late. There's good Catholic dating websites that are out there, whether it's CatholicMatch.com or CatholicSingles.com or Ave Maria Singles. And, we can't vouch for everybody who's on those platforms at the level of their spirituality. Some would be, more devoted than others, but not to give up on that quest if you feel that God might still be calling you to that vocation. But in the meantime, to do as much as you can to surround yourself with like-minded individuals. There's a conference called the National Catholic Singles Conference that's hosted every year. And I think it's just good to be around other people, who are living the faith, wanting to practice chastity, and open to God's plan for their vocation, although they might not have found it yet, even though they wish they found it 20 years ago. And so it's so important just to have that community, just to get involved in your parish, your diocese, your community, to find more like-minded individuals so you realize that you're not the only person out there who's carrying this cross right now and wanting to glorify God in your body despite your life perhaps not unfolding in the way that you had expected. So I would say, A, don't give up on hope. B, if you're still interested, check out some of those good online Catholic dating services. And then C, surround yourself with like-minded, faithful Catholics so you can realize you're on the right side here and just to continue to stay faithful to God.
Dean, thanks so much for the call. I don't know if you know this, Jason, but 53 is actually the peak of a male's life. That's for men, 53 is the best year. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah. I thought you were going to ask me how old I am, but no.
How old? I was going to say, but I didn't. On air. I figure let's wait till the show ends.
I just was surprised that Dean feels that his time of finding his princess is over, and he's the same age I am, and that's the perfect age. We're unbelievably desirable at this age. You wouldn't.
Next caller, please.
All right, Robert in Houston, you are up next with Jason Everett. Oh no, I didn't realize the clock. Sorry, Robert. Time's up because I had to be awkward with Jason. I had to make it all uncomfortable. chastityproject.com is where you can find out more from Jason. You just made a brand new study book for the movie The Dating Project. The Dating Project. You can find that at Ignatius Press, and you have Christopher West's book coming out in 3 weeks.
Dating Project's going to be coming out on Ascension Press.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, I thought it was all right. Very good, Jason Everett. Thank you so much for being with us, and it's such a helpful hour when you're here. Really appreciate it.
I'm glad to be on. And again, that other website I had recommended was EdenInvitation.com for those who experience same-sex attractions. But again, thank you for having me on, and God bless you guys.
And you too. Next hour, Dr. Stacy Trasankos will be here. We're going to talk about the science of life and death right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
What do the Pharisees, pagan emperors, the Nazis, and the Quran all have in common? All were enemies of the faith who admitted crucial facts that undermined their own position. In his new book, Hostile Witnesses, How the Historic Enemies of the Church Prove Christianity, author Gary Machuda looks at dozens of Christianity's most notorious foes, from biblical times through the 20th century, and draws from their words and deeds surprising testimony to gospel truths. Rich in research and written with clarity and force, Hostile Witnesses is a unique contribution to Catholic apologetics, one that speaks with special urgency to a modern world in which the faith is once again under attack. If you love apologetics, you need to order your copy of Hostile Witnesses today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore in your area.
Robert Hugh Benson's masterpiece, Lord of the World, is, in a word, prophetic. Originally published in 1907, it depicts a world where religious doctrine is not tolerated, euthanasia is practiced widely, and the leader of the world is a benign-looking politician intent on the destruction of religion in the name of truth. Author Dale Ahlquist said it best: whether or not Monsignor Benson's picture of our future is accurate, the fact is his picture of our present is chillingly accurate. Recommended by Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis, Lord of the World is a must-read. Order your copy of Lord of the World now by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Hi, this is Trent Horn, and I'm here to tell you about my new book, Hard Sayings, a Catholic approach to answering Bible difficulties. Have you ever read something in the Bible that confused you? Or has a skeptic ever asked you to explain a scandalous passage and you didn't know what to say? Doesn't Genesis contradict science? Why does the Bible promote slavery? How could God order his people to kill women and children? It's happened to just about everyone. But now you have a place to turn for the answers. In Hard Sayings, I look at dozens of the most confounding passages in Scripture and offer clear, reasonable, and Catholic keys to unlocking their true meaning. After reading this book, you'll be equipped to answer the toughest questions skeptics ask about the Bible. So don't be left without an answer again. Order your copy of Hard Sayings today by calling 1-888-291-8000, by visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or by asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
The people have spoken, and the verdict is in. Catholic Answers 20 Answers booklets are the perfect tools for catechesis and evangelization. And we're proud to announce that they're now available in ebook format. Clear, concise, and easy to carry. The 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers Press offers hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. We've got the information you need to know the Eucharist, salvation, Mary, Mormonism, and so much more. There are 17 titles in all, with more on the way. They're available individually at special bulk prices, or you can get a starter pack of all 17 at a very special price. And remember, you can now purchase them as ebooks for reading on your mobile devices. What are you waiting for? Call 1-888-291-8000 or visit the shop at Catholic.com today to get your copies of all the titles in this exciting new series, or ask for them at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Join us this September for a conference that is sure to ignite and inform your faith.
Every time we come here, it's just an incredible experience.
I love it. I love it. I'm so glad I came here.
And I'm having the time of my life.
Early bird pricing ends July 2nd. Visit CatholicAnswersConference.com or call 1-888-291-8000 today to register.
These guys are so amazing. I always get so much, learn so much. I've already signed up for next year.
Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Cy Kellett, your host, here with you. And now, can science tell us anything about life and death? Can it tell us when life begins, when it ends? Maybe there's some gray areas surrounding the beginnings and endings of life. This hour, we discuss the science of life and death. If you have a question or comment about the science of life and death, give us a call, 888-318-7884. Our guest this hour is Dr. Stacy Trasancos. Dr. Trasancos earned a bachelor's degree in science from East Texas State University and a doctorate in chemistry from Penn State University, which is one of them fancy, what's Ivy League schools. She has a master's degree in dogmatic theology from Holy Apostles College and Seminary. She's the author of Science Was Born of Christianity, the teaching of Father Stanley Yaki, and Particles of Faith, a Catholic guide to navigating science. And she's got a brand new book here with Catholic Answers, 20 Answers Bioethics. Dr. Stacy Trasancos, thanks for being with us.
Hello, Cy. Thank you so much for having me back on the show.
We generally have fun, so I'm glad to have you back on the show. I forgot to mention, though, you're one of the featured speakers at our Great Big Huge Giant National Conference coming up September 27th through 30th.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that so much. I can't wait for it to get here, and I think what I'm most looking forward to is getting a chance to wear my black cowboy hat next to Jimmy Akin wearing his white cowboy hat.
That is going to be the social media picture of the event. But have you square danced before? Did I ask you this before? Have you ever square danced?
No, I don't square dance. I don't, but I can do the Cotton Eye Joe.
Well, I wish I knew what that was. That sounds good. Because Jimmy's going to be teaching us to square dance there. That's part of the big conference.
Yeah. I'm all game for learning how to do that.
Oh, all right. Okay, very good. So this brand new book, Bioethics, 20 Answers, was it hard to write it? Was it hard to distill bioethics down to 20 questions?
It was very, very hard to do that because what you have to do to write, I mean, some people think it's harder to write a long book than it is to write a short book, but I disagree. It's very hard to narrow down the entire field to the most cogent things. It's like getting only a few minutes on stage to tell someone what the most important thing is about your life. And so what you have to do is you have to dive into the entire field, and then you have to figure out what are the most important questions to ask, and then you have to answer them as cogently as possible. So you have to really get beyond the whole thing and turn around and look back at it and decide for the reader, what is this that I want you to know when you walk away from reading about bioethics?
Let's say we could distill it down to, say, I don't know, the two most important things you should know about bioethics. Can you tell me the two most important things to know?
Yeah, the two most important things, because I really like first principles. I really like, because I have a lot of kids, I really like being able to put your finger on the thing that you need to remember. And with bioethics, what I figured out was the number one thing to remember for Catholics is to remember what personhood is, what the church defines as personhood. And it ties in with what Jason was saying in the previous hour. We have to remember that a person is body and soul. And if you understand that a person is body and soul made in the image and likeness of God, and I explained the Trinitarian meaning of that, how the Holy Trinity revealed to us what it means to be human, to have intellect and free will, and to practice virtue. You have to keep in mind that's what it is to be human. If you don't remember that we're made in the image and likeness of God, and you don't remember that we're soul and body, then you have no logical reason not to conclude like atheists do that we're just highly evolved animals and that when we die, we're just worm food. So that Catholic definition of person is one. The next thing flows from it. Don't kill an innocent human person. Okay, so almost every bioethics question flows from that.
So if I'm okay, so then if I start with these, get the premises properly in order there, that every human being, body and soul, is made in the image and likeness of God, and don't kill innocent people. I'm going to be, that actually makes a great deal of sense. As a matter of fact, a lot of life you'll get right if you just start with those two.
Yeah, that's my mommy version of bioethics. Because it's true, though, if you think about it, what is behind not using birth control? Well, not using birth control has more to it, like don't break the natural marital embrace. But also, you don't want to take a risk of killing an innocent child. You don't want to take the risk of it having the abortifacient effect. What's behind not using in vitro fertilization? You don't want to be put in a position to say, what do I do with these children I don't want to raise yet? Put them in a freezer and store them, or donate them to science. What's wrong with stem cell research on human embryos? Don't kill the innocent human person. What's wrong with organ donation, or what could go wrong with organ donation? The doctors who don't understand fully life or death, or whether you're actually dead, may, in their eagerness to get your organs, kill an innocent person. So you can narrow down much of it, not 100% all of it, but the big things, you can narrow it down to that.
So what about, I went just listening to the litany that you went through. I don't disagree with any of it, but I feel like I can see the question, particularly at one point where you say, not to destroy an embryonic human being, not to destroy a human embryo. Okay, so what about the person who says, yeah, but how do you even know that God has even put the soul in that creature yet?
That is a question that I took up early in the book. When does human personhood begin? Because I'm well aware of the debates about this. I've debated with atheists, I've debated with other Christians and other Catholics. And chemically speaking, like as a scientist, I know that we cannot, and actually I have to explain this a lot of times, we cannot reduce the beginning of human life or personhood to any chemical events. We can't say when all the atoms and molecules are right there, that's when the soul enters the body or is united with the body. We can't do that. And so we have to give that up. We can't actually define a precise scientific beginning of ensoulment. But what we can do is what the church says. The church says from the very first moments of its existence, all humans are to be respected as persons. And if we do that, then we're always going to get it right. So from the very first moment of existence, as far as we can tell, and as far as we can tell biologically, that would be the moment of sperm and egg fusion. The minute that the mom thing and the dad thing meet and say hello, that's the beginning of the new person. And so although we don't know for sure exactly that chemical series of events is when ensoulment occurs, we act like it is because that's the best we can do, and we're supposed to take it that seriously.
888-318-7884 is our number, 888-31-TRUTH. We're talking bioethics. We're talking the science of life and death with Dr. Stacy Trasancos. Your calls are welcome, 888-31-TRUTH. Before we go to the break, Stacy, I just want to let you know something. I want to remind people again that you're one of the featured speakers at our big conference, and you just go to CatholicAnswersConference.com to find out more about that. It's going to be great because we're going to spend days talking about faith and science. with really, really smart people. And with Stacy. No, just kidding. Among them, Stacy. But I have to tell you this before we go to the break. The internet seems disappointed that you're not wearing one of your funny science shirts.
I know. I'm trying to be more serious these days. I figured I just ran through all of them. I'd be a little more serious today in my turtleneck.
Well, you are yes, you have a certain gravitas in your turtleneck. Okay, well that explains it. Internet, calm down. Maybe next time she'll wear one of the funny science shirts. We'll take a quick break and then we'll get to your calls for Dr. Stacy Trasancos on science and the science of life and death right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Hello, everyone. This is country music artist Colin Ray. Do what I do and keep it right here on Catholic Answers Live.
Summer is upon us, and though the temperatures are going up, the prices are coming down during Catholic Answers' first ever summer book sale in the online shop at Catholic.com. For a limited time, dozens of great books are available for $10, $5, even as low as $1 a copy. This is the time to load up on solid Catholic books for you, your friends, and your family. The spectacular online event offers savings of 50% and more on books by Jimmy Akin, Tim Staples, Rod Bennett, Gary Michuta, and a whole host of esteemed authors, evangelists, and apologists. We've even got all of the books in our Catholic Answers Classics series marked down. Log on now to shop.catholic.com and take advantage of what will be one of the most exciting sales of the summer. You know it's all good stuff because it's from the people you know and trust at Catholic Answers. Log on to shop.catholic.com and start saving today.
This is Tim Staples, and I'm really excited to tell you about a special limited-time offer we've got right now on subscriptions to our award-winning Catholic Answers magazine. Sign up today during our annual subscription drive, and not only can you save big bucks off the normal price, we'll give you a digital subscription to the magazine for free. Subscribe today by calling 818-487-2011 or logging online to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. Sign up for a one-year subscription and we'll give you $10 off the normal price. Better yet, become a 2-year subscriber and we'll up the ante by dropping the price $20. That's a saving of $10 to $20 plus a free digital subscription when you sign up for a subscription to Catholic Answers Magazine. Act now. This is our best offer of the year, and it's only available for a limited time. Subscribe to Catholic Answers Magazine before our annual subscription drive ends. Phone 818-487-2011 or go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com today.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Dr. Stacy Trasancos is our guest this hour. She is a PhD in chemistry, but also a master of theology. And so we turn to her when we have science and faith questions, and we're happy to do so. She's going to be one of the speakers at our big conference. But I also should mention that later the summer issue of Catholic Answers Magazine, I think it's the July, August, or August, September issue, is going to be devoted completely to this topic as well, but it's going to be different material. It won't be the same material you'll get at the conference. And so it's an entire faith and science issue. Dr. Trasancos is in there. I believe you're writing for that, right?
Yes, yeah. There's one of my articles in there about evolution and creationism and Genesis and all that fun stuff.
Oh, very good. Okay, cool. And you can get a subscription to the magazine now, and you'll get that if you're subscribing now. Then you'll get, I think before the end of June, you're going to get the Faith and Science issue. That'll be your first issue that'll come. You get $10 off a one-year subscription, $20 off a 2-year subscription, and you get the free digital subscription with both of those. So you can refer back to any article you want in the digital archives there of the magazine. A great gift as well if you want to give it to somebody. Just go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. This hour, again, we're talking with our good friend Dr. Stacy Trasancos, who will be one of the featured speakers at our conference coming up later in the year, in September 27th to be precise, here in San Diego on faith and science. And we're talking about the science of life and death. Dr. Trasenkos has a brand new 20 Answers book that she wrote for Catholic Answers. It's in the 20 Answers series, and it's on bioethics. She also has a very loud computer. 888-318-7884 is our number. Was that our computer or hers? It was us? Oh, come on now. I blamed her. All right.
I think it was my phone.
Oh, it was your phone? All right. You're very popular. Are you ready to take calls?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm ready.
John, who's listening on the Catholic Answers app, and that means he's very smart because he downloaded the Catholic Answers app onto his phone. John, your question for Dr. Trasenkos.
Well, I may have missed some of her comments on personhood because of a bad connection, but it seems to me that when we study God's creation, we get the answers to all these questions. It's my opinion that personhood isn't this convoluted thing. It's you get your personhood when you get your DNA. That's who you are as a person. That makes me who I am. It makes Stacy who she is, and it makes Cy who he is. My issue with this scientists claiming to be scientists and then being devout in the Christian or Catholic faith is science clashes with the Catholic faith. There's stories about a talking serpent. There's stories about a talking donkey. There's a story about a young Jewish girl impregnated by a ghost. There's stories of dead saints all rolling out of their graves and walking around Jerusalem for a couple of days. Jesus knew so little about bacteria that he ranted at people for washing their hands before they ate food. And the whole story of Genesis kind of starts with this, presto, let there be light. These are the words of a conjurer or a poor magician or something. And so I don't really see how you can explain away all these things that are abundantly clear to anybody that looks at God's creation, that we don't have talking donkeys, and that every woman who's ever been pregnant knows that a ghost does not impregnate a woman. It doesn't go down like that. And yet you're coming up with all these things that you've determined what makes a person a person. I didn't hear whether you commented on the DNA, which is actually how a person becomes a person.
Okay, John, thank you. Stacy, I'm going to take that as is it possible to be Catholic and a scientist or to take science seriously? I will just add before you do that, I don't believe Jesus ever ranted about anything, but that's a quibble. But your response to John.
Well, so let me just say, science was born of Christianity. Like the view that we see the universe, the way we pray in the opening part of the creed, when we say, I believe in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. We believe that God created everything. And so science is incomplete as it is. If you understand it with some humility, science doesn't understand everything, but when you do science and when you learn about science and when you become a scientist, you are studying the handiwork of God. So for me, that's the first principle or the basic one-liner about why a Catholic should love science. Whether you become a scientist or not, you should understand that when you go out there and learn about how atoms and molecules work, and bacteria and photosynthesis and the digestive system and even the way the bodies decompose after we die, if you go out there and learn about how nature works, you're studying creation. You're studying the handiwork of God. So that's fundamentally how. Now, the next part of your question, though, about how can all these things that happen in the Bible, how can that be? Well, they're miracles. Some of the things you mentioned are miracles, like the virgin birth, the resurrection of Christ. Those are miracles. And miracles make perfect sense if you understand science, because if God created atoms to do their thing like they do so amazingly, consistently, and well, if God created the universe, which is a consistently interacting totality, then God can certainly work miracles whenever he pleases, and do that for our benefit, to show us that he loves us, that he's there, and to lead us to heaven. And so I don't think there's any conflict at all with a Catholic loving science, or definitely with a Catholic or a scientist believing in miracles. It only makes sense that there would be miracles.
John?
I'm in total agreement with you on this study of God's creation. That is what science is. It's the study of God's creation. Total agreement. What I'm not in agreement with you is these miracles is the study of ancient books. You're saying that it's almost religious blasphemy. You're saying that God's creation is wrong and your ancient books are correct. And that you should take notice of that. And when you study the history of these ancient books, it gets worse, not better. But God created the creation. We can study that and learn from it, and it's unquestionable that God's creation is true. We didn't create God's creation. He did that. And so when we learn from that, from science, we compare that to these ancient books that were created by man. Man was the one that decided which books would be included in the Catholic Bible. It certainly wasn't decided by God. And it shows proof that these ancient books are wrong, that they're inaccurate, that they're false, because they clash with God's creation. And it's plain as day for everybody to see when you read the stories in the Bible, that's not true. And we can look at God's creation for the actual truth. So that's my kind of point. And I agree with you totally that science is a wonderful way to learn, and we benefit when we study God's creation. We learn things like washing our hands and how to travel in outer space and how to do surgeries, all kinds of things we've learned that sometimes we learn things that get misused. I admit that, when you're talking about weaponry and things like this. But God's creation is undeniably true. Ancient books have known to be false or are false, and these particular ancient books that make up the Catholic Bible are obviously false. Because
all right. Well, John, you're making strenuous and discussable points, so I appreciate that. But let's let Stacy discuss them a little bit. Stacy, Dr. Trasenkos.
Well, I'm trying to understand. It sounds like, okay, so I misunderstood what you were saying at the beginning. It sounds like what your real point is that the Bible is wrong, that we should be Catholics and not have the Bible. Is that what you're saying? And
well, I think the Catholic faith is based on the Bible and the teachings of the Catholic Church, both of which clash with what we learn about God's creation when we study it through the sciences.
Okay, here I'm going to ask you to just give a specific example of that there's a way in which Catholic teaching or something in the Bible conflicts with what we learn by studying creation.
Okay, so we have the virgin birth of Jesus, that a ghost impregnated Mary when she was a young girl. She was actually engaged to be married to another man, which is the exact opposite of Catholic morality, as well as not the way a person becomes pregnant. It's
okay, so that's an example. I thought that Dr. Trasenkos dealt with that example. I want to be clear, just so that people know, we do say that Mary, that it is the Holy Ghost who that incarnated Jesus within the body of Mary. But we don't say that the Holy Ghost is a ghost in the English language. We mean it like the German Geist, Spirit, Holy Spirit. So in case that was unclear, we mean God. We don't mean like Casper or Blackbeard's ghost or something like that. But Dr. Trasenkos, the point seems that John seems to be making, we go back now to the virgin conception and birth. He says that conflicts with what we know about creation. Is he correct about that?
It might conflict with what we know about science, but all miracles do. And my point earlier was that if we understand that the universe is a consistently interacting totality, it also makes sense that God, who created and holds everything in existence, can work miracles whenever he chooses to, especially for the incarnation. It would be something special. But I honestly don't know what to say to you about the Bible, John, what you're asking about that. I mean, I could, if you gave me some time, I could find some resources that you could read about that, but that's not a bioethics question like I was prepared to answer, except to say that as Catholics, we do rely on scripture and tradition and the catechism, which explains what we believe through scripture and tradition. And so I would just urge you to be very cautious before just denying all of that, because it sounds to me like you don't really understand where the Bible came from or how the Bible is interpreted by Catholics.
John, I'm going to say thanks for the call. As a matter of fact, I invite you to call back anytime. These are discussions we love to have. We have to move on because there are lots of callers, and we are just slightly off our topic, which is bioethics today. 888-318-7884 is the number. Again, thank you, John. We go now to Michelle in Jacksonville, Florida. Michelle, you are on with Dr. Stacy Trasancos.
Hi. I'm happy to be calling in. I've never called in before. I've got a real burning issue in my household about children who've been conceived in vitro, because my oldest daughter just turned 17, my son is just turning 15, and I have a 12, 10, and 6-year-old. But the high school here, Bishop Kenny, has made and I am glad they have done it. You know, they've made a stance on a number of issues, but one is about in vitro fertilization. And we've unfortunately gone into a real sticky area here with my teenagers, because they have so many peers who were conceived by in vitro fertilization.
So if I may just get a clarification from you, Michelle, and I'm super glad that you did call, and it's your first call. We're happy to have you. What is the position that the high school took on in vitro fertilization? They're teaching that it's wrong or that it's immoral? It's okay.
Abortion and other issues, but I'd say the two, life issues are, abortion and in vitro fertilization, of course, assisted suicide, but it's really difficult. I don't know how to discuss this with my daughter, who has told me, a handful of her friends that I know, they come from lovely Catholic loving families, and they were conceived by in vitro fertilization. And I've just tried to explain, I'm really glad they're here. They're lovely. I adore them. But
that's a tough one.
Unfortunately, they're coming into the world the way that happened. They've got a lot of siblings who did not make it, and this is a tough one. And I just, it's abortion. I've never understood how. To me, it's a no-brainer. Not to kill a conceived child in the womb. We should not kill people before, like God's, from conception to God's, his last breath, but when you've got children who are, approaching 20 now in their teens.
Who were, created by in vitro fertilization. It is a wonderful question. If you can hang on 2 minutes, we'll get an answer from Dr. Stacy Trasancos right after this.
Your questions, Catholic Answers, live.
It might be said that anti-Catholic notions of the Church's history are the original fake news. With all the misinformation being spread, where does one look for the truth? In The Real Story of Catholic History, Professor Steve Weidenkopf gives you the facts on over 50 of the most common misconceptions about Catholic history and shows how to answer them simply and powerfully. Whether it's to answer claims about Catholicism's supposedly pagan origins, old myths about the Inquisition that never seem to go away, or more modern errors that anti-Catholics put forth, The Real Story of Catholic History is an essential resource for every Catholic's bookshelf. Order your copy of The Real Story of Catholic History today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Sharing the gospel with family and friends can be challenging. It's especially hard when they won't even hear you out because of all the mental roadblocks they've built up. This is Carlo Broussard, and in my new book, Prepare the Way, my aim is to help you tackle that essential first step to apologetics and evangelization, getting people to listen with an open mind. Even our best witness can bounce right off folks like these if we don't prepare the way first, breaking down barriers and leaving minds and souls free to encounter the truth. I'll give you evidence and arguments and step-by-step strategies based on asking the right questions to help them overcome their obstacles and make a straight path for the Lord. Order your copy of Prepare the Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
The Trump administration rolls back the Health and Human Services contraceptive mandate.
U.S. bishops calling for the total elimination of nuclear weapons.
Pope Francis offers prayers for the victims of the California wildfires.
The U.S. House of Representatives has passed a bill banning abortions after 20 weeks.
And Pope Francis says the death penalty is contrary to the gospel.
Your link to news headlines Catholics count on at the top of the hour. Weekdays on EWTN Radio.
Catholic Answers Live. We're talking the science of life and death with Dr. Stacy Trasancos. And Dr. Trasancos will be one of the featured speakers along with Father Terrence Ehrman and Raymond Burke, Cardinal Raymond Burke, who will give the keynote at the banquet dinner of our great big giant Faith and Science conference that's coming up this September 27th through 30th at the Hyatt Regency La Jolla. And it is that La Jolla is about the most beautiful part of San Diego, and late September is about the most beautiful time to be here. Also speaking at the conference with Tim Staples, Jimmy Akin, Trent Horn, Carlo Broussard. Our own president, Chris Check, will be giving a talk. Father Hugh Barber will be preaching throughout. And we'll be doing the radio program live from the conference floor one day. And also, if you sign up before July 2nd, you get a pack of Jimmy Akin M&Ms. Early bird pricing also between now and July 2nd. That's not that much time left. And a full conference ticket includes the banquet dinner with keynote address by Cardinal Burke. Don't miss this. Go to CatholicAnswersConference.com, CatholicAnswersConference.com. And Stacy, you said you're going to hang out there for the whole conference. You're going to be giving the opening talk. Is that right? You're giving the opening talk?
Yes, I'm giving the opening talk, and my point there is to just sort of blow away all the cobwebs. It's like we're going in to remodel a new house, and my job is to gut the place so that all these other speakers can put things back where they're supposed to go.
Oh, beautiful. And you'll be wearing your black cowboy hat. Jimmy will be wearing his white cowboy hat. And you can, yes. And this is also the case with Jimmy. I mean, he has every right to wear the cowboy hat. But you are a horsewoman as well. You did a horse, like, I don't even know how to describe this. It was like a combination retreat horse camp that you did earlier.
It was amazing. Yeah, two of my daughters and myself went to this Imagine Harmony retreat at a horse ranch owned by a Catholic family in Montana called the Rocking Z Ranch. And they have like 70 horses and a whole bunch of acreage on all these mountains, and it's a guest ranch. And they want to have 1 week a year where it is strictly Catholic. Father Sean Raftis, who he's one of the characters in that movie Tag that's coming out this summer. One of the guys. Yeah, have you heard of that?
No, I didn't know that.
So I met him. He's one of the guys that the movie's made about, and so it's really cool. And he's a great, great priest, and he held mass every day out in the mountain lodge, and he even held mass on Friday up on a mountain, literally on a mountain. But we rode horses every day. We talked about faith and science and the difference between animals and human persons. And it was just like, it was radically different from anything I've ever done before. And they're going to have another one next year. We're trying to decide on the date right now, but just beautiful. If you really want to talk about creation, you can get out and experience creation like nothing I've ever seen before. And the horses were good. I mean, my girls have a new respect for mommy because I rode horses in rodeo-like events when I was a child, and I won the barrel racing contest.
At the camp?
Yeah, I did. I tied with another mother, but we blew away the daughters. We beat them.
There's the spirit. So if you love horses and you love the mountains and you love Jesus, this is a good thing to do. You'll be doing it again next year. I don't think there's any place in the world more beautiful than Montana. It is just unbelievable.
Amen.
We're talking bioethics this hour. Let's go to, I shouldn't say let's go to. When we left, we were talking to Michelle in Jacksonville, Florida, about her teenagers. And on the one hand, their Catholic high school is teaching about the immorality of in vitro fertilization. And on the other hand, they have friends who they love who are the products of in vitro fertilization. These are children produced by in vitro fertilization. This presents a problem for Michelle. How do you handle that?
Michelle, that is stuff we talk about in the Trasenkos household all the time as well, because I have teenagers. And, I did, when I was writing out my answers on this, I included that question because I know it's one of the hardest ones, but it was one of the most difficult ones to talk about. Fundamentally, what's at the very root of this question about in vitro fertilization, the church teaches that we are not to break the natural marital embrace. And honestly, at first, that doesn't sound like much of an argument. You know what I mean? Like, that's why you're not supposed to do it. It is at the very heart of it. But if you think about it, so what I try to do with my kids, and I don't claim to be all knowledgeable about how to talk to teenagers, but I try to back off from the individuals. I mean, first of all, we have to affirm, of course, we love those individuals. Every human person is loved by God, created by God, and it's good that they exist. But I try to back off then from individuals just to the society level and take the question to a more general level. Why should we as Catholics not support, why should we call it unethical, something that breaks the natural marital embrace? Because when you break that reliance of husband and wife on each other, and you take the childbearing gift of God into the laboratory where it's not supposed to be, and then all kinds of things flow from that. So if it were just, why can't we just do it in the lab because we so badly want to have our own genetic child? It just doesn't end there, though. So once you break that embrace and you move it to the lab, then what happens in the laboratory is that more embryos are made than the couple will need. And so then the couple's in the position to decide literally, which children do we want to freeze or donate to science or kill, and which children do we want to raise? And that's a horrible question to be put into. It changes, it's subtle, but it changes the focus from what's best for children to what do the parents want. And it comes down to the parents want a child who is genetically like them. When they could, and this is the hard thing to say, the right thing to do in that situation, and Catholic couples who are infertile, who deal with that huge burden of infertility, they know this. The thing is to adopt. There are plenty of children. Children have a right to a mother and a father, and there are plenty of children who don't. So this kind of suffering can, like every other kind of suffering in life, it can be an opportunity to love more fully. And to put children before yourself. And it's really difficult to talk about, and I understand that. And what I put in my answer in the booklet just deals with just those things. And I promise you, I was writing that as if I were talking to a situation with teenagers who have friends, just like you mentioned.
Michelle?
Yes.
How does that sit with you?
It didn't. Everything that you said is what I've actually said to my child. You know, my next one up really is kind of away from it. But my daughter, she really is very upset about this because she feels like it's almost like, don't you think they should be here? And it's like, no. And it's exactly what I said. It's the whole process of what happened in that laboratory, that there are all these, her siblings that didn't make it, and or actually she's got about 5 actually, and that these children did make it. And yes, I am glad they're here, and and I know them all, and they're wonderful, and their families are wonderful Catholic families, raising their kids up in the Catholic Church through the Catholic school systems. But I have not talked to the parents, but from her, apparently the parents are feeling like they almost want to pull their children out. because they feel like their children are now being told that they're not legitimate. Yeah. You know, and it's such a sad thing that science provided this sad opportunity, because usually we talk about, you know, people who aren't here now. Well, we are talking about people who aren't here now. You know, we're glad the individuals are here, and I'm so glad they're here. But then how do you say, well, but how they came to exist, it means a whole lot of other people didn't make it, and it's not helping. I just don't know. I'm just really having, except just to say, you know what, compassion. It's sad that this whole situation exists. You know, I'm not trying, because she thinks I'm actually trying to say they shouldn't be here, and that yes, they should have adopted.
But nobody is saying that.
No.
So that's a little bit of reality testing there. I mean, have you ever heard someone say that? I mean, that's because I think sometimes you can get stuck on that. That's the implication of the message, but that's the implication you're taking from it, but it's not the message. As a matter of fact, the goodness of God is that God kept his promise. When that sperm and egg, however they came together, zipped up a new set of DNA, God kept his promise and delivered a soul to that person and delivered life to that person. God was faithful. No one's saying that that's not a good thing, the faithfulness of God. It's Stacy, you want to finish?
On something like that, like, I think you get to a point sometimes where there's really nothing more you can say, and you just become a broken record and repeat the same things over and over again. It's not about the people who already exist. It's about what's ethical going forward, and that it puts the focus more on the parents' desires than on what's best for children. So going forward, don't do that. Going forward, find another way. But keep putting the focus on moving forward, not on what's already here, because nobody says that those children are not legitimate. And maybe that's what we need to do, is just keep repeating that, because God forbid those children actually grow up thinking that. I mean, we need to make sure, people need to make sure that those kids never think that.
Michelle, thanks so much for the call. We do have to take a break. Michelle. I just want to mention, as an adoptive father, I always want to say, because you mentioned adoption, and I think people are squeamish about adoption for some reason, and I like to say this just to remind people, your adopted child is just as precious to you as your other children, and in my case, I love her more than the other children. So you want to just keep that in mind if you're resisting adoption. I hope my kids aren't listening. We'll be right back with more Dr. Stacy Trasancos on bioethics, the science of life and death, right after this.
Hang on, we'll be right back with more Catholic Answers Live.
Hey everyone, Carlo Broussard here. Can you feel the heat? Summer is upon us. Things are heating up, my friends, and that includes our first ever summer book sale and the online shop at Catholic.com. For a limited time, we've got dozens of great books offered at $10, $5, even as low as $1 a copy. So you can load up on solid Catholic books for yourself, your friends, and your family. This spectacular online event offers saving of 50% and more on books by Jimmy Akin, Tim Staples, Rod Bennett, Gary Machuda, and a whole host of esteemed authors, evangelists, and apologists, including yours truly. We've even got all of the books in our Catholic Answers Classics series marked down. Log on now and all this month to the store at shop.catholic.com and take advantage of what will be one of the most exciting sales of the summer. You know it's all good stuff, because it's from the people you know and trust at Catholic Answers. Log on to shop.catholic.com and start saving today.
Pope Francis said, "All of us are called to mature in our work as evangelizers. We want to have better training, a deepening love, and a clearer witness to the gospel. St. Paul Street Evangelization's online school of evangelization will equip you with the tools you need to be an effective evangelist. We'll ask for a pledge of financial support, but if you're unable to give, we'll set you up for free. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their faith and values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Looking for an on-fire Catholic speaker for your event? Catholic Answers speakers will inform and inspire your audience to grow in their Catholic faith. For more information on booking a Catholic Answers speaker, visit CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com today.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Our guest is Dr. Stacy Trasancos. I said that I love my adopted daughter more than the other children, and I really want to take that back. I hope I didn't hurt anybody. I like her better than the other children, but I don't love her more. Sorry, I'm just mischievous today. I just feel mischievous. Let's go to Jillian in Dayton, Ohio, listening on St. Gabriel's Radio. Jillian, you are on with Dr. Trasancos. Your question, please.
Hi. I am very worried about what I've been reading, just kind of backhandedly, about the potential of human cloning and how's that fit into all of this discussion? Because I kind of think that's going to happen one of these days, kind of sooner than later.
I got you. Yeah, that was a very straightforward question, and it's an excellent question. And you pretty much answered it the same way that I do, Jillian. So there's human cloning. First of all, so there are a number of reasons, and I'll just try to break it down. And I don't have a question about this specifically in the book because I thought it went into too many details, but I did have to give an answer to it in my head just to think about it. Cloning. If all that we were talking about was taking the DNA and asexually reproducing another person, first of all, cloning would be unethical for the same reason that I just explained about IVF. It breaks the natural marital embrace. Children have a right to a mother and a father. So there's that. The next thing, though, is the only way that any scientist is ever going to figure out how to clone a human is to kill humans in the process. So as they are doing the research, as they're creating human embryos and trying to grow them as far as they can, and by the way, they can create a human embryo in the lab and grow it up to 14 days now. And there are actually ethical questions about, wait, now what do we do? Because they can grow them so long in the laboratory, longer than ever. So it would be unethical for that thing I said in the beginning, don't kill an innocent person. It would require, to develop the technology, would require killing more innocent persons. So there's two reasons why it's unethical. However, as we both know, and just like you went right to the heart of, Jillian, the scientists are going to do it anyway. I mean, that's a fact. We as Catholics are supposed to speak the truth and defend the truth, but yeah, they're not going to stop trying. And there probably will come a day, just to be honest, where they get close to it or they do something like clone humans. It could happen. And what do we do then? Well, you can imagine this future where what if there are cloned humans walking around among us? Okay, we get back to Catholic simple truths. If they're human bodies, they have a human soul. We love them, we treat them with dignity. And actually, if that day ever comes, the people who understand Catholic bioethics, like we've been talking about, those will be the people who will step up to those other people who were created like lab rats and say, you know, we're going to love you. We're going to figure out how to include you in society. We're going to love you. We're going to deal with the human dignity part. So that's kind of how I look at the whole question. And like I said, you went right to the heart of it. What do we do when it happens? We get ready to treat them like any other person.
Jillian?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the question, Jillian. Boy, the questions are multiplying as the science of biology just grows by leaps and bounds. I have a follow-on to Jillian's question, and I wonder if you can help me with this. There's some idea that a person who lost their kidneys, for example, and might need replacement kidneys. There's some idea that you could make an animal-human hybrid that could grow kidneys for this person. Like mix the DNA of the person with the DNA. People talk about a pig, I guess because pigs make kidneys very similar to ours, and that you could transplant these into the person. What about that level of cloning, where I'm not trying to create another person, but I'm trying to create replacement parts by creating creatures that have within them human DNA?
Yeah, there's actually a company that was in the news recently, back around 2014 or so. It's called Ganogen Research Institute in Redwood City, California. And it was co-founded by 2 graduate students, biology students. And they're trying to do that. They're trying to grow a bank of organs so that when humans who are sick need organ transplants, there is a bank of organs ready to go. And it sounds great. It sounds like a good idea, except that the way they are growing these organs is that they're using materials from human fetuses. They're using fetuses from abortion, and they're either taking the organs out of those and putting them into pigs to grow until they get to a certain size, or they're using cells from those tissues. And so again, it gets back to that part. Well, you can't do this if it's going to require killing innocent humans to get the organ bank to cure sick humans.
I see. Oh, it becomes like the I don't know if you ever saw that science fiction movie, The Island, where you basically take replacement parts from. You have like a replacement version of yourself that you take your replacement parts from. I imagine that there are people who will say that that's not wrong, especially if it's just a little baby or it's even a child before being born. So what about? Go ahead.
I was going to interject real quick because I think this is an important thing to say. There are ethicists who don't adhere to Catholic teaching. And just like I was saying about body and soul, there are ethicists who argue that it's actually unethical, it's immoral to throw away aborted fetuses because they could be used. They could be used for research, they could be used for their organs, they could be used for something. And they actually argue that it's unethical to throw them away, which that's horrifying.
Well, yeah, it's a completely utilitarian, isn't it? This is just,
yes.
It's there, we must use. And it turns a human being into a product. I suppose that's at the root of so many of these problems is we're thinking of a human being as a product instead of a human being as a gift from God.
Exactly.
Let's go to Chris. I don't have a location, but he's listening on 106.3 FM. Chris, your question for Dr. Trasancos. Hey, Chris, I don't know if you're talking to us or somebody else, but if you are on a phone, you got to take it off of Bluetooth or hands-free and talk right into the phone. If that's not the problem, you need to climb up out of the well that you are currently standing in and speak to us from the open and free air. Are you there, Chris?
Hello?
Oh, hi, Chris. Your question for Dr. Trasancos.
Oh, hi. Sorry. This is the first time calling. Sorry, I had to sit down.
No problem. Happy to have you, Chris.
Me and my wife were talking, and we got onto the topic of contraceptions instead of abortion. You guys were talking earlier about, well, not abortion. We would never do abortion. We don't believe in abortion. But when it comes to contraceptives, we're not sure what to say on that. Like, I mean, obviously the child, as soon as it is conceived, it is a human, but what about before?
Oh, great question, Chris. May I ask you, are you asking that as a Catholic? Are you a Catholic yourself, or you just would like it?
I am a Catholic, and I believe in no using contraceptives, but
you want to know why?
My wife has brought what?
You would like to know why?
I want to know why. I've never quite understood. I always knew abortion was wrong, but I don't know about contraceptives because, I mean,
okay,
you're not a child yet. Like, it hasn't even been conceived.
Fair enough, Chris. I'm going to let Dr. Trasancos answer, and if her answer goes right up to the end of the show, stay on the line. I want to send you some reading materials. But Dr. Trasancos.
Yeah, and I'm going to refer back to the Second Vatican Council's Humanae Vitae, which is coming up on its 50-year anniversary. It affirms that marriage is ordained towards the procreation and education of children. And so the way I put it in my own words about responsible parenthood, what you said ties in with the way I think about it too. It's like the church is saying you have to be good parents even before your children come along. You have to be so committed to your marriage, because marriage is, they say, it's a reflection of the Holy Trinity. I mean, all of our relationships are, but the marital relationship is particularly intimate. It is the most intimate relationship. It's when two people give of themselves completely, and that's what the Holy Trinity is about. The Father conceived the Son so perfectly. He gave all of himself to the Son except to be the Son. And so we also are called to be in communion with each other. And marriage is that most perfect, most intimate communion. And so what the church is really saying, and I think it's beautiful, and I had to struggle with these things in my own life as well, and I found this part to be the most confidence-giving aspect. It's saying you have to work on being the best wife and the most open and giving and receiving and loving wife to your husband, even before you have children, or even before a child is conceived, so that when the child is conceived, that the child is conceived and loved, and you're both ready for the procreation and education of those children, because the next 18 years are not going to be easy ones. But I love that part of it. It's really thinking about the child before the child's even there, just like you said.
Chris, any comment?
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you. But I really don't have much to say. I just completely agree with that.
All right, Chris, if you could hang on, I want to send you a copy of our most recent copy of Catholic Answers magazine. It was completely devoted to the issue of contraception and to the Pope's document from 1968, Pope Paul VI, Humanae Vitae. Hang on, and Marie will get your address if you're willing to give it to us. Dr. Stacy Trasancos, thank you so much for another great hour.
Thank you.
Thanks for putting up with my tomfoolery as well. Oh, there it is. There's the black cowboy hat. And I know you're going to be on one more time with us at sometime this summer at least, and then people can meet you in person at the big conference September 27th.
Yes.
All right. If you want to do that, if you want to come to our conference, CatholicAnswersConference.com. Again, Dr. Trasancos, thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. 2 hours of open forum tomorrow. Jimmy Akin will be here the first hour, Jim Blackburn the second hour. If you've got a question on the Catholic faith, we'll do our best to answer it then, God willing, on Catholic Answers Live.